Six names, one position, and a whole lot of questions. Today, we tackle first base in our positional review series. Plus, Andrew McCutcheon might not be done just yet, and a fan AMA that asks a bold question about Connor Griffin. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Pirates, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. Today, we continue our positional review series by diving into first base. We'll also talk about Andrew McCutcheon's cryptic social media post and what it might mean, and wrap up with a fan AMA about Connor Griffin's chances of cracking the opening day roster. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. First base. Yeah, I think it's fair to say I've probably started out with two of the easier positions. But again, I'm trying to make a larger point, and I'm really hoping that by the time we get to the end of this journey, a lot of you are kind of on the same page with me. I think the point I'm trying to make here is, as I go around, I think I'm only going to find a couple imperative spots where, like, if they don't do something, they're in a lot of trouble, right? So I think we're going to go around the diamond. We'll make those determinations as we can. We'll come back with our proposed 26-man roster if they did nothing. And then that'll be a good baseline to head into the winter. So continuing what we did yesterday, and if you missed it, check it out. Catching was yesterday. First base. Let's see. There's 6 candidates as I see it, and we'll go through them in order. Rafael Flores. Most of his stats are from the minors, so let's do that first. He had 280 in the minors, 354 on base percentage, 824 OPS, 22 home runs, 508 at bats. So decent amount of time that he spent down there, and that's pretty damn good production for that many at bats. In MLB, 200 average, 294 on base percentage, 627 OPS, 0 home runs, but he only had 15 at bats. So it's really not worth even looking at those numbers. But the minor league numbers, I think, are impressive. He did have a couple, examples of his contact skills at the majors that I think, at the very least kind of opened some eyes. We'll get into his defensive prowess as we move forward. I just want to kind of go through them first and talk through the offense. Jared Triolo, he's played a little bit of first base. They backed off of it big time towards the end of the season and moved him back to the left side of the infield for the most part. But you still have to consider him an option in this whole thing, especially if you want to keep your options open as far as what you want to do with the left side of the defense and the lineup. Jared Triolo is a guy that's likely going to make the team. This would be one of the positions he can play, therefore he is an option. In the minors, he didn't spend a lot of time there, but he had a couple home runs and hit 239, which really wasn't all that great. I think it was a lot of the reason why people were so kind of concerned that he was getting the call back, but I think the part they missed was the 810 OPS that he put up down there and the couple of home runs. They'd made some swing changes, and it impacted the power aspect of his bat pretty quickly. It also seemed to help him draw more walks, and it could just be that people were maybe a little more afraid of his bat, so they're not leaving so many things over the plate purposefully. We'll see how it goes with him. I liked what I saw towards the end of the year, but I've liked what I've seen towards the end of the year before. I didn't feel like this one was as BABIP-driven, though. Spencer Horwitz. I think it's undeniable he had a pretty damn good season, really. 257 average, 338 on-base percentage, 740 OPS. He only had 346 at-bats. This is a guy that missed a decent amount of the season. I like where he's at. I think he's, if you ask me honestly, the incumbent starter. I don't think there's really any reason to pretend he's not. In fact, I'm not even 100% married to the fact that he has to be a platoon player. I think that the Pirates could fairly easily find somebody that'll hit lefties better than him, but I don't think it's like a drastic necessity to assume he can't face any of them. I think that might have been a little bit of getting ahead of ourselves as far as what he had done versus what we might want to see him try to do. Nick York, in the minors, he hit 287 with a 348 on base percentage, 754 OPS, 7 home runs, and that was in 401 at bats. He fought a little bit of injury bug. He fought an extremely slow start, but the numbers were pretty good. Once he got up here, it was a pretty slow start, I'd say, but I did feel like he started to turn things around a little bit. He only got 55 at bats up here again. That's not really a fair number to be judging anyone on. 1 home run, 236 average, 608 OPS up here in those 55 at bats. I would think like York's a guy that you should see more of. And, this isn't scientific, so don't take it that way, but he just looks the part, doesn't he? He looks like a major league player. And you know what I'm talking about. He looks like he's got the frame and the size, and just there's a difference when you see a guy that you just feel like should be able to play this game. It doesn't always work out, of course, but that's where I am with Nick York. Malcolm Nunez. Yeah, I know it's not a name we talk about a lot. He got injured this year. Ended up landing on the 60-day IL, but he also had a 285 average. The bat was finally starting to play. I gave him as an option here for first base, although the Pirates didn't use him as such very much. So I think it's a stretch. I'm just saying, if this is a bat you want to see, this is a position you might see it at. I make him an option because he's been around forever. I'm not even sure if they would protect him from the Rule 5. In fact, I kind of lean that they wouldn't. And he only had 165 at bats this entire year, and 2 home runs. The numbers were fine. I'd like to see more of them, but because he looked about as impressive as he has since he's come to the Pirates. And then Manuel Valdez, I'm gonna mention, if only because, guys, we got to see him at the very beginning of the season. He was playing emergency first base. I don't believe first base is a position they would want him to play. But I also feel like until they cut him, I have to leave him as an option. He only hit 209 up here, 2 home runs. He only had 91 at bats. For a minute there, he was about the hottest hitter in the Pirates lineup before he got that shoulder injury and lost the rest of the year. But those are the options. And I went through a lot of them, and largely to be kind. This to me is a sewed up position, really. Actually, I should have included Endy Rodriguez too. I didn't. I should have. But we talked about Endy in the catcher mix in yesterday's show, and I kind of talked a little bit about why I felt he probably wouldn't be able to break through at first base. I just feel like there's too much in front of him. That's still true. It also applies to these other guys like Valdez and Nunez and Nick York to a degree, and Jared Triolo. I just don't see any call or reason for thinking that they need any more at first base, really, besides a spot start here or there, which Triolo could more than handle, or York could more than handle. I would think like you're probably looking at Flores and Horwitz, and I think it's going to lean heavily towards Horwitz. And I think it should. His bat is coming along. He's been a very good defender. In fact, even in the last game of the season, we kind of saw the inexperience of Flores at first base, like just not necessarily knowing whether he should flip it to the pitcher, run it to first himself on a ground ball, like things like that. There's no way to get that experience until you've gotten that experience. And if they're going to want him to play a lot more first base, I just think they need to fine tune some things. I think Horwitz starts as the very clear starter. And then just like yesterday, I kind of want to sew it up the same way. I don't believe first base is a position this team needs to go out on the open market and or trade market and look to fill. First base is filled to me, just like catcher. I'm asking you, just like I did yesterday, do you agree with that? Do you think Spencer Horwitz and Rafael Flores are enough to fill first base next year? I'm leaning that way, personally. I think first base is filled. That's two positions we've reviewed so far and two positions that I feel are filled. I do realize what their record was this year. And as I go through this thing, I think what you're going to find is that I'm going to feel like at least 6 or 7 of the positions are filled. And that doesn't leave an awful lot of room for change. I think you're talking about change around the fringes and then hoping that you get growth from some of these guys. And I think that's the realistic way to look at it. I think it's probably the way the Pirates are looking at it. But when we come back, let's talk about another variable in the roster next year because Andrew McCutchen coming back seems to be a story, whether he wants it to be or not. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less than 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks a little bit lately. It's such a fun way to stay locked in on the season, no matter what's going on, even if you aren't in touch. Sometimes I do it on the NBA just because I feel like it. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's get the likes up at least to the views, right? Come on. The likes are way fewer than the views. Let's see if we can match those numbers up a little bit. So, Andrew McCutchen, is he coming back? Where is this all coming from? Well, I mean, let's be real. It's not just recent comments. It's not just Jason Mackey saying something on the fan, or that stuff certainly makes it a little bit more of a hot stove. But really, Andrew McCutchen's comments from, say, the middle of the season on have kind of led you to believe that he was at the very least not 100% pleased with his usage or playing time here in Pittsburgh. And here's the thing. Jason Mackey reports that Kutch is unlikely to return in 2026, citing the Pirates' budget and DH production. But Kutch responded on social media with a simple LOL, and then later he posted a gif of himself smirking after a bad call in San Diego. Because Kutch is a master of social media use. He said himself, I do want to continue playing, so wherever that may be, I'm looking forward to seeing where the offseason takes me. So even if the front office is looking to move on, Andrew McCutchen clearly isn't ready to hang it up. And I don't believe he's done thinking it's going to be in Pittsburgh. I think some people are reading into his comments, me included, by the way. Some people are reading into his comments, pushing back on the team, or feels like trying to push the team into listening to their better angel, if you will, about some of the things they need to do. That said, I do believe there is a real difference of opinion between the team and Andrew McCutchen as to what he's capable of, what he could be used for, how he should be used. I think Andrew McCutchen feels that he should be an everyday player. It should be really easy for him to DH every day. He feels he could play the outfield on occasion if they wanted him to. He's said these things. The Pirates clearly don't agree. And I want to say, look at his numbers this year. This is a guy that got over 500 at bats. Okay. The production for those 500 at bats, while being about the fourth best production on the Pirates, is not the kind of production that you need to be able to get out of a DH spot from a guy who can do nothing but DH. If you're going to have a spot dedicated to DH, you're going to bring in a guy that can do nothing but DH. Well, that guy needs to be like the anchor of your offense, right? Needs to be a pure hitter that really is just doing nothing but killing baseballs. That's not what Andrew McCutchen did this year. I want to be really respectful about this because I want Kutch back. I don't think that this team should charge into taking a hit PR wise by moving on from somebody like him. I think what really needs to happen more than anything, Andrew McCutchen needs to come to a realization that his days of playing every single day are over. He's now going to be a bench player, and he's going to get 250 to 300 at bats wherever he goes. And that to me is the clincher. If he really and truly is stuck on this, like he wants some kind of an assurance that he's going to get 500, 600 at bats, like, and play the outfield once a week, that I don't believe that's going to happen in Pittsburgh. And the clincher is, I don't believe that's going to happen anywhere. I don't believe anybody in the league is going to offer Andrew McCutchen more than $5 million and anywhere close to 500 at bats a year to only DH and only hit 10 home runs. You know what I mean? Like, his production has fallen off to the point where you can't justify that as a solo bat. And this team can't justify tossing it out the window if he's willing to come back for $5 million, because $5 million worth of production is exactly what you got out of him this year. If he wants more money or he wants more playing time, I'm sorry. Unfair as it is, you got to say no as a Pirates executive. If he is willing to come back with a different role, or he's at least not going to sulk about it all year because he's going to accept it. I mean, you cannot sit guys like Rafael Flores for Andrew McCutchen 3 times a week. You've got to have ways to get those bats in the lineup. And I think we're starting to find that Brian Reynolds really needs to be in the DH spot a lot more than he is. And I think he might be more productive if they got him out of the field a little bit more. So there are ways I think this team could use the DH spot to kind of make it a little bit easier to call up prospects and give them opportunities. And maybe that's something that this team really needs to think long and hard about. But if they want to bring Andrew McCutchen back again, I think it starts with him. His mindset has to change. You can't come back expecting to be a full-time player here or really anywhere. And maybe it's as simple as letting him go out and have those conversations. You go out and you start talking to these other teams, like, about what your opportunities might look like, and they won't be able to lie either, because when they get started doing like the contract negotiations and everything, and they build in those incentives, that they'll build in, like, hey, if you clear 200 at bats, you get this bonus, and 300 at bats, you get this bonus. And you'll know from that structure they offer you what they actually plan on letting you accomplish this year. I mean, and he's been a Pirate for a long time, so he knows this game, right? The Pirates might not do that aspect to him, so it will be a little more open-ended. And if he's really feeling it, this is the team that's going to be like, okay, we were wrong. Kutch, you play every day then. You're killing it. This is the team that's going to do that. But if Kutch comes back, listen, this is just barreling towards a bad divorce, whether it ends this year, next year, whatever. At some point, Star players have to understand that the ride is over. It's not my place to tell him that. It's not my place to tell him it's time to hang it up. Andrew could probably play another 5 or 6 years if he accepted a very limited role or a bench role and a $3 or $4 million contract. He could probably play till he's 45 if that's what he wants to do. So I'm thinking like one more good year, announce it, be real about it, get your flowers, get your thank yous from fans in all the different stadiums that you've played in. Get your goodbye tour. Let's do this right, Kutch. like, let's do this right. Let's finish this on the upswing. And don't get me wrong, I don't if a guy comes in spring and they're like, "Yeah, I'm retiring." You probably shouldn't have shown up for spring. Okay? Like you're not in a good even Aaron Rodgers right now for the Steelers. There's some people like they're kind of shocked that he's suddenly talking about maybe playing another year. Well, once you get into playing, of course you have convinced yourself that you can keep playing. If you haven't, you wouldn't be there. Well, it's the same kind of thing. Nobody's going to show up to spring, I don't think, like Koch, and be like, well, this is it for me. I'm hanging it up. This is going to be my last season. I'm going to play. He's going to get asked the question. He's going to be evasive about it. He's going to say he doesn't know, and he's right. But sometime towards the All-Star break, that's when you want a realization to come. Let's say like you're around the All-Star break. He's got I don't know, 175, 200 at bats. You're clearly only going to get 350 to 400 this year. That your numbers are what they are. You're probably hitting 250. Maybe you've got 7 home runs by then, something along. You're playing sporadically. You're pinch hitting here and there. Maybe then you kind of look around the room and you realize that, yeah, and now's the time. Now's the time for me to probably announce that this is it. Then you go out and you get a half season of your flowers. And I think that's the perfect formula for this to end. Unfortunately, these things don't end in a perfect way. No matter what happens, I trust that you, the fan, will blame this organization first and foremost. And I probably will too, because, Andrew's earned the stubbornness that comes with being a legend. But for this thing to end clean, there's only one way for it to happen. Andrew McCutcheon's got to change his mind, and he's got to be the one to announce when it's over. I have my doubts that's happening this year. But I also have my doubts that he's going to look around the league and think he found a cushier landing spot. I really don't. And I think the Pirates, as long as they're smart and upfront with him about how they plan to handle him, there's a place for him. There's a place for a bat like that. And there's going to be injuries, and there's going to be times when you need to ride him for 2-3 weeks. And I think that's exactly the reason you have a guy like that here. And if you get to the playoffs or whatever, you're going to want a guy like that off your bench. You're going to want a guy like that you can stick in every once in a while, like against a really tough lefty. Like, I'm going to start Andrew today. There's reasons to bring him back. This doesn't have to be a divorce yet, but it's coming. And it's going to be ugly unless Andrew is the one that does things the right way. We'll blame the team, but he's the one that's got the cards. When we come back, let's do a great AMA. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Money, 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 everybody. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. So a fan asked me Could Connor Griffin start at shortstop in 2026? Do you think there's actually any shot if he tears up spring that he could start at shortstop? Yes, I do. Um, I think it's unlikely. And here's why I think it's unlikely. Because there will come that date that's about 2 weeks before spring training ends where you can cut a guy and send him back to minor league camp and still continue to let him play, but you avoid the chance that he's going to get injured and stuck on your major league roster. So basically, you would have promoted him and started his clock for no reason. Almost no major league team is going to allow that to happen to them. So the likelihood is he's going to get sent to minor league camp sometime in the middle of spring training. He'll continue to make a couple appearances here and there, but for the most part, his spring training will be cut very short. I don't believe they'll really give him a true opportunity to win a spot this year. Um, and there's a couple reasons for it. One, I think you really do want a 19-year-old. He's not going to be 20 until April. I think you really do want a 19-year-old to get at least a couple at bats in AAA. And I know that probably sounds really old school, but I think I personally just would be too afraid of starting the guy's clock and then finding out that I've got to backtrack a little bit, because that's how you go from number one overall prospect to like, uh-oh, we screwed up big time, right? I think you probably want to be more careful with that. I'd love to think he could do it. I think the talent's there, and I think he'll be impressive in spring. My thing is, I'm not 100% sure that it has to be shortstop either. I think he could be a center fielder, and I don't believe that you can claim O'Neal Cruz has a death lock on center field, clearly from a fielding standpoint. And if you ultimately have to move Brian Reynolds out of the outfield and into the DH spot or whatever, you might have an opening there in center field for Connor Griffin. You could move O'Neal Cruz to right field, or potentially even he goes to DH, and then you have Connor Griffin patrolling center field. Let's not forget that's where he's naturally gifted to begin with. He doesn't have to be a shortstop. I mean, I think that's part of the reason for trying to see if he could be a shortstop, was basically to see if he can do shortstop and center field. That means they feel he can play 8 positions. You know what I mean? Like, there's 8 positions they feel he could handle. That's important as far as like getting called up. I believe he will get called up next year. I find it very difficult to believe that he'll make it out of spring. And I really don't care what fans want to decide that is. If they want to decide that's being cheap or manipulation or whatever, that's fine. I don't care. My suggestion has been and would be to extend him right now. But you'll note that when I say that I want him extended right now, I'm talking like one of these Jackson Churios type deals where you give him, 10 years, 80 million. It buys out his arbitration and a couple of years of free agency. It's more money than he would make in that time by far. That's why so many of these young players sign them. And I think that's what I would do. And then that doesn't mean that he's getting promoted. That just means that I no longer have to worry about any of the extracurricular shit that goes with it. I just get to worry about, is Connor Griffin ready to impact the Major League Baseball team? That's it. And you can structure it so you're still paying him jack this year. Like, you can do it so that this year he tops out at $1 million no matter what. You don't have to be stupid about it. You don't have to assume that he's a nailed on like MLB starter from day one to do a contract like this. This is just a way of getting around all of baseball's BS, not worrying about service time. You've got a, by all accounts, really, really top prospect here. It's just what Boston did with Roman Anthony. It's what Milwaukee's done with Jackson Churios. It's what you're seeing in this league. Young players, very highly touted, very expected to make an impact, and you make a bet. You're basically telling your fan base, hey, the time you're going to have Connor Griffin, don't whine about it right away because you've got way more than you normally do. This is one guy you shouldn't be going, well, he's going to be a Yankee in 2031 because he's already signed and it's cheap. You get what I mean? You got to take a risk. It's a risk, but it's a worthy risk. They do something like that, all bets are off, bro. Do something like that, service time doesn't matter anymore. Then you have all the incentive in the world to start him right out of spring because you got a chance to win a draft pick. You don't have to care whether he gets rookie of the year or not and loses a year of control because you're not playing that game. You've completely cut yourself out of that game by being smart and aggressive with a player like that. Do I think there's a real shot? Athletically speaking, I think Connor Griffin could probably do it. Realistically speaking, I think everybody involved, including Connor and his father, would probably be a little more comfortable if he played a little bit of AAA. Nobody seems more patient about this than Connor, to be honest. He's the one that's still referencing being here in 2 or 3 years. Last time he was interviewed, you know what I mean? And that's more unrealistic than him starting out of spring. That's it for today's episode of Locked On Pirates. We'll continue our positional review series next time with second base. Until then, keep the questions coming and keep an eye on Kutch. He might not be done just yet. Let's go, Bucks.